Hello everyone, Rorius here. Despite what I thought earlier, I have time to record one more episode of something today, so just a quick start to the developer commentary for Half-Life C.A.G.E.D. I think we can do it. So let's get straight into this. Now, I'm not sure if I'll be able to find every piece of developer commentary. Typically these games have ones in the secret areas of the game as well, and I don't know if this game has secret areas or like... I only know what I've already done in the game, you know. So yeah, I'll do my best to try and find all the developer commentary nodes in the game, but I can't guarantee that I'll find them all. Unlike some other games that I am more familiar with. Yeah, I'm really curious. A C.A.G.E.D Games production.
Hey, and welcome to a C.A.G.E.D game.
Oh, C.A.G.E.D.
A future game select game. I think there's some comedy in working on a project in tech that's almost 20 years old. Yeah. And perhaps there's a subtext working for a tech like this, which would maybe read something like, simple problems with overly complicated solutions. But you know, I love it. Old school stuff like this is awesome. It's so fun to work in tech like this. Something elegant about making games in these older BSP-based editors. Sometimes creating the simplest things in these old engines is just so involved and so complicated, it's awesome. Yeah, I just fucking love it. This intro here was conceived pretty much to set the mood and set the tone for the game. I wanted to give the player the slightest semblance of a background story, or perhaps lack thereof, before we throw them right into the prison cell. And I think there's something nice about starting the game off kind of mellow and on an even keel. And also really it was just a good opportunity to flex my muscles on scripting in this engine. And I think Laserhawk's music in the background really makes it what it is. C.A.G.E.D was originally a much smaller map, released as a collaborative project back in 2002. It's part of a project called Quantum Leap, where you jump between the creations of different level designers in one mod. And I always wanted to polish it a little bit more, do something a little more in-depth with it. And so here we are 15 years later, working in dead tech, and this is what it's become.
That's really interesting. I love hearing what the developers went through and what went through their minds when they were making stuff. Yeah, it is interesting to go back to really old tech and to try and see what you can do with the old technology. I paused it halfway through there because I suddenly realized that the screen's not in full resolution, and I'm curious to see if that's because it decided to reset itself, because I have, I upgraded. Widescreen, here we go. There we go. Yep, and before I finish up, I'm going to put... Yeah, there we go.
Will we ever make it out of
here?
There
we go.
I'm not certain. No! I don't want to die! Arr! Arr!
Oh, it's loud. That noise.
I've got to get out of here!
Before we can do anything.
I think something that's not often talked about in games is the building of tension and the building of suspense. The different elements of foreshadowing and layers that come together to build a mood.
Wait a minute. Is there a music plus commentary? Best experience listening to developer commentary. Decrease game sounds and effects, increase the music commentary. Yeah, because I was gonna say some of it was so quiet. I'm gonna put the commentary right up.
Mood for the player. And I'm not talking about your normal foreshadowing, like the palm tree sunset picture on the wall of the prison, which is a nod to the finale to C.A.G.E.D, but to all the little pieces that come together to make this cell a memorable experience to the player. The dialogue from the player's cellmates, the sound effects in the cell, and the visual effects around the cell all build to a climactic escape. In the original release of C.A.G.E.D, the intro cell was rather bland. The player turned the valve on the pipe and it blew a hole in the floor, but the prison didn't really react. It didn't come to life, it didn't engage the player, and it certainly didn't care that the player was escaping. In reworking the scene, the goal was exactly that. It was to bring the prison to life, to have it react to you escaping, and to try and stop you. And this type of reaction is important. It shows the player the consequences of the world in which they're playing. And it sure as hell motivates them to get out of their prison cell and jump down the hole.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So it looks like, because we're working with Half-Life 1 here, the developer commentary nodes aren't quite as sophisticated as they are in the later games. So, we're having to... I believe this is what I was supposed to do, wasn't it? Yeah.
My God, what are you doing?
We're not able to just
I certainly
rely
know
on the
what you're
commentary
doing.
node changing the volume for us, you know.
That sound. What is it? Oh no.
That's right, it actually swells, which is really cool. Ow, I got hurt. Yeah, sound effects and what he was talking about is very apparent. Damn it. The music's gonna be like kicking, so... I don't know if I'll be able to hear this properly.
The toilet plunger here is a nod towards the amazing game Roger Wilco. One of the things I always liked about Roger Wilco was that he referred to himself as a sanitation engineer, which of course is just a nice way of calling yourself a janitor. There's something about those games that always intrigued me. I don't know, maybe it's because it was that kind of brutal era of games where the slightest mistake at some critical moment would cost you the game. Leisure Suit Larry's from the same era. I mean, that game can almost be even worse. I mean, one of the first things you do in that game is you're plopped in front of a bar, and there's a street in front of you, and you try and walk in the street, and bam, game over. Why would you walk in the street? A car hits you and runs you down. All those games were trial and error. Everything was out to kill you, ruin your fun. I don't know, it's a guilty pleasure, I guess.
Yeah. Funny or interesting that music stops when you choose the developer commentary things, but also, oh, there was something I was going to mention about that, but I can't think of what it is now. Damn it. Yeah, some of those old games with their brutal methods, I guess you could say, are pretty funny. But also, yeah, you know, it's from a different era of games. One where you couldn't expect to get any progress when playing the game, because everything could kill you and ruin everything. So this plunger is a whole reference to someone who refers to themselves as a... what did he call himself? Waste management engineer or something like that? Oh dear, I love that. I love the plunger crowbar thing. I do love that. I also think it's really clever. Oh, right. I think it's also really clever that they put that that sort of foreshadowing to the end of the mod right at the start there. Right at the start of the prison cell, there's a little reference to the end of the game. I think it's really cool. Sorry, I'm gonna have to cut off more music.
One of my favorite movies of all time is Escape from Alcatraz.
Oh, I was gonna mention, I was looking for sort of, is it in here somewhere? Is it in here somewhere else? Looking for captions or, you know, allow custom content. No, it doesn't look like there's any sort of like, you can't put subtitles. You can't put subtitles on, unfortunately. So we're gonna have to just.
And one of the best scenes in that movie is when they finally escape. They break out of the back of their prison cells, and they're climbing up the pipe and ductwork between the different prison blocks, going up to the roof, escaping, but you can see that they're in this space where they really shouldn't be. They need to be quiet. It's claustrophobic. Things are unfamiliar. It's not a livable space. You know, and as you're watching this, you're not sure what's going to happen. Are they going to get caught? Is the prison guards going to come out and catch them in the act? It's suspenseful and it's exciting. And I think that's a really interesting position to put the player in. Put them someplace where they're not sure if they should be there. What are they supposed to do? Are they doing the right thing? Is somebody going to come out and shoot them in the face? I don't know. They don't know. And I think that type of suspense is what makes games interesting and keeps the action going and keeps the fun going. I mean, if I'm in a game and I'm not sure what's going to happen next, heck, I'll take that. I'd love to play a game like that. And that's what's going on with the jump at the beginning of this section. You know, people say they hate jumps to ladders, and that they suck and they're no fun. And I don't know, maybe they're right.
I like them. Yeah.
This jump reinforces that anything can happen in the game. You're set up to expect to be able to bridge a gap, but that's something that this game will challenge you with, so that you can move on and climb up a ladder, and that you just have to learn to master jumping. But then in the next section, we break the damn pipe you're standing on and throw you down in a pit full of leeches. How's that for meeting your expectation?
Wow, that frickin' perfect timing.
This is one of those situations where there's definitely complicated solutions to simple problems. At least in a modern game engine, this puzzle would be pretty simple to set up with some physics. But Half-Life 1 doesn't have any physics.
No, I was
Source
going to say.
doesn't support that. At least to the respect that this puzzle tries to fake. So here, it's just a big smoke and mirrors show trying to fake that with a bunch of crazy entity work. So the two boxes that are trapped at the bottom are just two trains. They move on a predetermined track. Now the funny part about how this grate works in releasing the boxes is that behind the scenes, hidden in the wall, there's a laser beam. And this laser beam is shooting into a brick. And on the other side of the brick is a target. And as you turn the little handle, the brick starts to move. When the brick is able to move just far enough, the laser beam passes and hits the target on the other side. The laser beam does damage, and when it hits that target, it causes an event to fire, telling the box to move and float upwards. Now, all of this is possible because there's a special entity that allows the movement of a piece of geometry to be tied in to relationship to a turning handle. Now, it lets this block move in conjunction with that. And so simply by adjusting the relationship of that laser beam and target to this moving block, you can time it so that an event will fire the moment that block moves out of the way at a very specific time. And in this case, causing the buoyant boxes, that are trains tied to these tracks, to then be fired to move. Now, disregarding the complicated scripting to get those boxes to float up, you then have the entity work to track their state. So once the player has released these boxes, there's special entities that are tracking whether the water is at its lowered or raised position, and which state those boxes are in. Now, if the boxes have already been released, they're told to actually float and move to another position, because of course they're not physics-based. They don't float. They're just trains on a rail. Now, if they haven't been released by the player yet, and they raise the water, then the tracks of those trains are changed. So when the player releases the boxes for the first time, they float all the way to the highest position. And all of that's just part of the scripting involved to get a simple puzzle where the player pulls a lever and some boxes float up to the surface.
That's mad. I never really thought about that. Yeah, because the water level changes, but you can do either side of the puzzle at either time. Oh my god. Yeah, you don't think about that with old games. Like, I'm so used to just games having physics engines built, you know, engines having physics stuff. Die, rat. I feel bad, but then it's a rat. Gotta kill it. Yeah, like, that's mental. I can see what he means, though. I can see how he's gone about doing what he's done, you know? Because essentially, yeah, the way I would imagine you'd need to do it is you'd need to have 3 different tracks. One which is set up to the first height, another that's set up to the second height, and then a third that just bridges the first and second heights together, so that depending on which way the player does it, depends on which track the blocks are attached to. That's crazy. That's absolute madness. That's amazing. Oh dear. Okay, so how am I doing for time? Okay, I think I still have some more time. Let's keep moving.
I always think it's important to create spaces in your environment that make it feel larger than the story and the experience of the player. With Carson's hideout here, it's a space that gives the illusion that there's been other prisoners that have attempted the escape you're on now. Maybe they haven't been successful, and is not quite sure who they are or what their experience has been, but they're there. And I think those little bits of environmental storytelling go a long way to making the player feel that the universe is cohesive and has a depth and richness to its story.
I don't know what it is about the plunger, but I just love the plunger. I love that you use a plunger to break metal gratings and boxes and stuff. It's so ridiculous. I love games that are willing to be silly, you know? There we go. It's like, where am I going? Shit. Oh, okay. Chapter 2. Chapter 2, Turret Unwellness. Yeah, so this is the part where there's turrets. Ow! Ah! I said ow, but I didn't actually get hit. Just was startled. Okay.
This is one of my favorite little sections of C.A.G.E.D. behind the scenes in the walls of the prison. A lot of it goes back to some of the things I really enjoy the most about prison movies and escapes, is seeing the prisoner figure out how to probe the system for weaknesses, how they're working around security, feeling uncomfortable, not sure whether they're going to get caught, or how exactly they're going to escape. And in this section, I tried to recreate that feeling, presenting the player with an unknown number of choices and dangers, making them test the security and find the areas where it's weak. I think a lot of modern games have a really hard time making the player feel uncomfortable, and I'm not sure why that is. Games often would handhold the player through a section like this, or not allow the player to feel uncomfortable, or not allow them to not know what to do. It's really a shame that we've seen a trend of games moving away from this, because it's a really exciting feeling, really emotional feeling for the player to have. And it's something that keeps the player from feeling like they're moving linearly from A to B, and instead solving problems in their own way with their own creativity.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that sentiment. Oh. I'll try and disarm it without it shooting me. Shit. Ah! Damn it, I still got hit. Okay, I got the turret. I turned off the turret so I can get into here where there are weapons, I believe. I think. So that was commentary 7. I wonder... Oh, there was just some beans. I'm assuming that's... oh, that's armor, that's right. There's no actual weapon in here. I thought there was a weapon in here, damn it. Because I just remember plungering one of the turrets. What did I... No, I plunged the soldier to death, didn't I? I think last time I plunged the soldier to death. Oh dear. I think that's... Is there any other way you could do that? Is there any weapon around that you can use? I don't know. I don't know if that's something you're supposed to do. I just always press it because it's a button. And it doesn't seem to impede my progress as far as I can tell. So it's gruel. I think that's what I'm picking up. Those are the things that are turning into armor when I pick them up. Okay. Oh, I swear there were guys here before. Okay, before anything else happens.
There's a great little trick here in the armory with all the weapons hanging on the wall. Half-Life doesn't support actually positioning any of the weapon models in any position you like. They basically can lay on the floor and that's it. So in the armory there's a bunch of weapons hidden under the floor that you can't see. And when you pick them up, they're set to trigger different models that are positioned on the wall and turn them off to give the simulation that you picked them up off the wall.
Yeah.
There's all these little tricks like this in the Half-Life engine that you kind of have to do because it's old and it couldn't support all of the things that a modern game engine can support.
Yeah.
But I like all of that. All that's texture. It's what makes working in an older game engine fun and interesting. There's different challenges to overcome. And I like finding those creative ways of solving those simple problems with overly complicated solutions. Across the room there's the lockdown status board with a little callback to the cell that you escaped from, and I always liked that. It was something from the original C.A.G.E.D. And across the other side we have the priority alerts. And I always like to try and add little touches of humor. I don't know. Gruel sustenance pump error floats my boat. I think it's funny.
Yeah. No, I agree. One of the things that I enjoy the most is finding ways to trick systems into doing what I want them to do. So like this little thing he's talking about here, where he has hidden weapons down here, and then the models are just attached to like triggers that just deactivate the model. I like doing stuff like that. That's kind of my jam. Oh god. God damn it. Oh, okay, it's got little commentary notices saying level changes ahead and stuff like that. That's cool. It's just in case you, just in case you're listening to a node and you're gonna get cut off halfway through. Yeah. So that was commentary 8. I think I'm trying my best not to miss any of them. I think this has been set on an easier mode for the commentary. It is nowhere near as hard as it was before. Okay, there's a node here, which I'm going to assume is node 9.
One of the little quirks of Gold Source, when Half-Life first shipped and mods for Half-Life were new, was that getting music into a mod into the Gold Source engine wasn't really possible. The music for Half-Life shipped on the disc. It was on the CD. And as you played the game, the disc would be spun up and the game would fire off to play some music, and it would pick a track from the CD. It was a dual burnt CD. It had music on one half and data on the other. So if you wanted to have high quality music, you couldn't put an MP3 on there. MP3s were new. Napster was a thing. Like they were a new thing in the world of technology and consumerism.
Back in the day.
So if you wanted to have music in your Half-Life level, you put it in a wave, and it was compressed down to 8-bit mono. And it sounded absolutely terrible. Now, because Half-Life played the music off the CD, it couldn't distinguish between what CD was in the drive. It would just play a track from whatever disc happened to be in there. And back then, I shipped a mod called Big Lolly. And a year or so after it shipped, I got an email from a guy who had played it. He said he really loved the game. He loved using the giant lollipop to smash gingerbread men, but he was even more excited that the game featured a soundtrack to AC/DC. And isn't it amazing that AC/DC's his favorite band too? I never had the heart to tell him. He just left his CD in the drive.
Oh! Oh my god, that's... Oh man. That is like one of those moments, it's like, oh, you just don't have the heart to tell them. Yeah, last time I played this on the stream, I learnt some of the positions of the guys here. So I hopefully can just like take them down with grenade lobs. Oh god. What? The game just crashed. Okay, I'm back. I might have accidentally hit F10 when I tried to load. That might have been something I just did. He's still alive, god damn it. There we go. God damn it. God damn it, you piece of shit. Oh dear. He kept dodging my grenades, just non-stop. I think one of the guys is still alive. He's just around the corner, isn't he? Okay, I think there's a guy around here. Ah, no. Oh, it's F7. That's probably part of what caused my problem last time as well. Oh, what the frickin' hell? F7. Ah, dear. Okay, I have grenades for this. Take that, buddy. Poor scientist guy. Oh, here we go. Why is there emergency tranquilizer? I was gonna say, why was there a crossbow in the infirmary? Absolute madness. Or as Pewds would say, absolute mad lad. Okay, there should be 10.
I really do think that playing with expectations is one of the best ways to make games interesting. And playing with those expectations brings out interesting emotions in the player. The elevator ride here is a place where often you'd see someone set up a cheap scare with some baddies or some kind of trap in the elevator. And I chose not to do it. It seemed like a great place to crank the tension and suspense to 11, and at the same time give the player some downtime and a breather from all the action. Inaction can be just as interesting as action, and the uneasiness created in the player waiting for the elevator ride and the unknown at the end of it is what I think makes a really interesting emotional response. It's one of these sections in a game where I think if a producer or publisher were to look at it, or if a playtesting group from your publisher were to run through the area, you'd get back some lame bug about how nothing's going on here and it's boring and why would I just want to sit there? There's no action. And they would be missing the whole point, which is that there isn't any action, and that's what makes it interesting. At least I think that makes it interesting. You can't be shooting people in the face every second of the whole game. Or maybe you can, I don't know. Maybe it's a sign that I'm a bitter old game dev.
I totally agree with him there. I totally agree. I find that there are games nowadays that... I mentioned this thing about Valve, talking about... actually, that'll be coming up soon as well, the developer commentary for episode 1. Mentioning the player fatigue. You know, you can only have a section to be you can only make a section of a game so long before a player will get really tired of doing that same thing over and over, or doing something consistently. You know, like if you just have a 20-hour game, or let's say you have an 8-hour, even though it's just an 8-hour game, you can have an 8-hour game that's nothing but combat. You get very drained. Like even in Half-Life 2, the section in the city where you're fighting Combine, especially towards the end of the city section and the start of the Citadel part, the part just before the start of the Citadel is a long combat section. There's very brief bits of there's tiny little specks of puzzling or platforming, but it's almost all combat, just non-stop Combine combat. And it gets very tiring. In my opinion, it gets very tiring. Doing stuff like that, having an elevator ride, as you're saying, having an elevator ride that just doesn't have anything in it, creates the suspense, but doesn't actually have any combat. It's a breather for the player. It's important in games to have that. I find that a lot of modern shooters, don't understand that. As he was saying, like playtesters and producers and stuff think you need to cram every last bit of the game full of whatever your game has, you know. You either need to cram every last bit of the game with puzzle, or you need to cram every last bit of the game with combat, or whatever, or shooting, etc. But if you do that, then your game becomes bland, because it's all just one... You need peaks and troughs. You need a wave of different elements going throughout the game to make it interesting, to keep it interesting and to keep it fresh. If you just go straight to the top of your action, intensity, and you just follow that intensity, you keep that intensity for the whole game, you've got one line of a game, you've got one very boring line of a game. These are just my opinions, by the way. This is just what I think about when I think about game stuff. As is made evident with some of my Paul Unity stuff, I'm not exactly the best at game development. I clearly have seen... Every time I go back to watching people play Paul Unity or doing stuff like that, I see all the mistakes that I made back then. And every last little mistake is another pin in my body that I have to deal with. But yeah, these are just my opinions. These are just what I think about. This is just what I think about the game development stuff, what I've learned over the years. But yeah, nevertheless, I'm going to have to leave this here. I don't have any more time to record, let alone edit. But yeah, hopefully this will come out after the Portal Pro video that I was saying I wasn't going to have another episode, but fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. If you like what you saw, hit like. If you want to see more from me, then subscribe. The next episode of this developer commentary will be coming soon, and Portal Half-Life 2 Episode 1 developer commentary will be coming soon as well. Hopefully you guys enjoy that. Thank you so much for watching, and as always...